Hello, BookTube. I got a little more mail. I thought we'd go through it together. I miss going through my mail hauls with you. But I got yesterday I got two periodicals. I got the Times Literary Supplement, two back-to-back issues. Because one had been delayed, so I got both of them at the same time. And today, again, delayed, I got the New York Review of Books, which is, like the TLS, one of the foremost literary journals in the English-speaking world. Uh, and I've only dipped in to this issue of the New York Review. I have not. I of course went through all of the full color publisher ads to see if I am blurbed on any of them. I am not, as far as I could tell. And then I looked through the table of contents to see whether or not there was anybody in this issue I hate personally, where encountering their work, either as the subject of a review or the writer of a review, would seriously hurt my enjoyment of the whole issue. that sometimes happens. That did not happen here. And then the first thing that I got to was exactly the thing that I predicted yesterday, that literary journals are going to start to do this. They're going to start to poll their frequent contributors for what they're thinking and reading during quarantine, during this pandemic quarantine. And I know a lot of these names. A lot of people, Jenny Uglow and Harry Kunzru, and a lot of these names I know. I've read their works. I've read their literary criticism. But even so, some of the tones here of complete solipsism are what I was worried about for pandemic journal pieces like this. They practically assemble themselves. So I imagine that every literary journal in the world is going to do them. But even so, you're going to come across passages like this. These days, I usually dream about nice dinner parties I wasn't invited to. Romanticizing with other people's quarantines is just the latest update of an ancient habit. So what if I signed divorce papers the month before the city went on lockdown? Sure, I sometimes wish my quarantine was another quarantine, and I sometimes wish my marriage had been another marriage, but when have I ever lived outside my own life without that restlessness? Things like that wear on me pretty quickly. They pretty quickly wear on me. You signed divorce papers before a city of 8 million people went on lockdown, and you are drawing a one-to-one. Anyway, I am, even if I am not blurbed on the full color publisher page ads, I'm still interested in seeing them because they show where the money's going. It's not a small thing to put a full color ad here, and who are the publishers picking? Which books are they picking? Plus, it's not just me. I look for, like for instance, here we have Digging Up Armageddon. And here we have Deaths of Despair. Things like that for Open Letters Review would not be my reviews. They may still have blurbs, though. Not as far as I can see in any of these cases in this issue. Then we have, like I said, I didn't read this whole thing. I just sort of dipped in and out of it. I will read the whole thing later on. The impression I get, the general impression I get looking at it, is that it's mostly reviews of stuff that I did not get, would not read. So, I mean, I'll read the reviews because I want to see what these people are writing. I want to see how they're doing it and what points they're raising, but it won't be with the kind of intense interest that I would have if, for instance, next month, the New York Review of Books were to run a review of the new James Monroe biography, which I have read, and I've read all of the primary documents, and I've read every other James Monroe biography, and I am going to be reviewing the James Monroe biography for an American newspaper. That, when all of those tumblers fall into place, I am more interested in reading parallel reviews than I am in reading people writing at 4,000 words about something that I wouldn't even pick up if it were sent to me for free. But every issue of the New York Review of Books is going to have some just standout entertainment in it. And because the New York Review of Books, under any editorship, has at its beck and call some of the best writers today. And this issue is no exception. This issue right in the middle has a long piece on various books about Charles Darwin by David Quammen, one of the greatest natural history writers alive today, and the author of Spillover, from about 8 years ago, a book about Zoonosis, a book about humans contracting viruses by eating bushmeat, contracting viruses that have no, for which there is no herd immunity in the human world. And that, I've been thinking about Spillover a lot lately, obviously. And in that book, David Quammen is just straight up 2020 prescient. He's just straight up says, you don't know this word, zoonosis, but you're going to hear about it a lot. It is the future of humanity. And boy, oh boy, when he's right, he's right. But if I remember, I'll leave a link to my review of Spillover down below. But in this piece is all, it's a review of a few books on Charles Darwin, but it is mainly just him ruminating about Darwin, and that is so much fun to do. So. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? You act up in every video now. Why is that? What are you doing? What are you doing? That choking sound that she makes when she's excited, that has been true since she was 6 weeks old. That was one of the first things I noticed about her when she was just this little rat that I had, is that sound that you can hear her making. She makes that choking sound when she's excited. That. Anyway. Bean, could you stop kicking me? I'm trying to make a video. She's kicking me. She's kicking me in the small of my back. Oh, so baby, will you stop doing that? What's the matter with you? Here, do you want to see your fans? Is that it? Here, let's let you see your fans. There they are. Oh, look at the mess you've made of your face. Oh, well, you have, baby. You made a mess of your face. Because you're thrashing around like a lunatic. Why were you thrashing around like a lunatic? Oh, you're a strange little dog. You are. You're a strange little dog. I wouldn't say it if it weren't true. But anyway, I was trying to say the books here. Let me just for those of you who don't have the New York Review of Books, the books are Darwin's Most Wonderful Plants, a tour of his botanical legacy. Then On the Backs of Tortoises, Darwin, the Galapagos, and the Fate of Evolutionary Eden, and then Evolution Before Darwin, Theories of Transmutation of Species in Edinburgh from 1804 to 1834. So he is reviewing 3 books, and but it's his ruminations on Darwin that I just love. I want to read you just one of them from the end of Darwin's life, from Darwin's unknown publishing career. We know On the Origin of Species, we know The Voyage of the Beagle. Some people maybe know What is the matter with you? Why are you going crazy? Why? Why? Not that it matters. You care more about her than you do about me. But Quammen, if I could ever get back to this review, Quammen writes, but there were many books in him, and they were mainly about plants. He had already published the Orchid book and another about climbing plants. Now he shifted entirely to botanical subjects for a stretch of 5 years, as recounted by one of the authors of the books under review. Insectivorous plants, the effects of self-fertilization versus cross-fertilization, the different forms of flowers that can appear on plants of the same species, some intriguing topics and some numbingly dull ones. How many readers could get excited by the fact that a single primrose plant can produce 2 kinds of flowers, virtually identical, but one with a long style, the stalk that channels pollen tubes to the ovary, and one with a short style? How many critics could be incited to contest hotly the explanation for such a phenomenon? The answer is essentially none, and I suspect that's a clue to understanding Darwin's final years. I've long cherished a pet theory that he turned to these arcane botanical subjects, producing more than one book that was solidly, empirically, discreetly evolutionary, yet a, quote, horrid bore. At least partially so that the clamorous controversialists fighting about apes and angels and souls would leave him the hell alone. It's just awesome. And I don't doubt that he's right. I don't doubt that he's right at all. But what else? What else do we have here? Nathaniel Rich writing about that new life of P.T. Barnum that I just could not like. I just could not like it. I tried, and it just didn't work. Lots and lots of paid color ads, but lots and lots of these main feature articles are about things that I would just never request. Giles Harvey, who's usually very, very good here, he writes a long review of Weather by Jenny Awful. I haven't read the review yet. He's usually very good. There is nothing that can save a review of that book. I already know that he's going to praise it as a millennial event, no pun intended, as we can all put our pens down, fiction has reached its apex, all that sort of crap, the same Garth Greenwell crap that we talked about yesterday. For a book that isn't even really a novel, it calls itself a novel, it's not even really fiction. It's mainly just one after another Seinfeldian stand-up comedy scripts. Just sort of, I'm not even going to say, I was about to say just sort of stitched together, but Jenny Awful doesn't even go to the bother of stitching them together. It's just block paragraph, ostentatious space, block paragraph, ostentatious space, another block paragraph, ostentatious space. Show me an arc of character development. There aren't any characters. And also show me a failed arc of character development. There isn't that either. She just doesn't care about any of that. She doesn't, and hence why I say that I don't think that it's even fiction. I don't think it's a novel. I don't get, actually, I was going to say I don't get the way critics and otherwise smart readers that I know are tripping over themselves to praise this crap, the way they did with Sally Rooney before she was assumed bodily into heaven. She still writes, but she writes from heaven. And the way they do with Garth Greenwell and his, I went to Bulgaria and had bad trade, and all I got for it was this lousy book that I'm going to write over and over again for my whole career. I know why. I was about to say I don't know why otherwise smart readers trip over themselves to praise this crap, but I do know why. There are two reasons. One is that most book critics were reedy, persecuted youths, to put it gently, to use some euphemisms. Most of them cannot resist being in the cool crowd. They cannot resist it. And if the literary world, which is by definition not the cool crowd, if the literary world suddenly develops a bandwagon, they'll jump on it feet first, because then they'll be in the in crowd. It's an urge so atavistic, I don't think any of them have really looked at it. That's one reason. And the second reason is that a lot of these people are bored. With a lot of them, the people that you will get to review Jenny Awful, or to review Garth Greenwell, or to review Sally Rooney before that was an excommunicatable offense. Now you can't review her, you can only praise her. But the people that you get to review the very cutting edge, most Brooklyn of all Brooklyn contemporary fiction, literary fiction, the ones you're going to get to review that never read anything else. And I believe are eaten through with boredom. Not because they're unadventurous readers. They are unadventurous readers, but because the most Brooklyn, the most Williamsburg tip of literary fiction is unbelievably boring. Of course, if that's all you read, you're going to be bored. Whenever I see something like this, a bandwagon form like this, whenever I hear these people assume this, oh my God, my ennui has ennui. Whenever I hear them assume that kind of tone, I always want to tell them, why don't you take a break for a minute and read some science fiction? Or read a history of the American Revolution? Why don't you take a break from reviewing the same three people and read something else? And either that will fire you to go to the New Republic or BBC History and pitch history reviews there, or you will come away from that reading experience with your interest in the latest wet wash from Jenny Awful renewed. Why don't you do either one of those two things, as opposed to being so ostentatiously bored with the crap that you're reviewing and taking it out on your readers? Why don't you do that? but no. Fortunately for all of these people, they don't have to go through such insufferable old man yells at cloud monologues from me because of social distancing. And even when social distancing is over, I have a feeling they're all going to use that as an excuse. to not congregate and get these diatribes. You watch and see. In 2022, my friend Sam, will he still be making social distancing excuses for not coming up to Boston so that he doesn't have to listen to drunken rants? We'll see. But the next long review that I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to read it, is David Bell writing about Matthew Lockwood's book To Begin the World Over Again, which is about how the American Revolution destabilized the whole of the Western world. And I've wanted to like that book a lot more than I did. So maybe Lockwood's review will send me right back to it. That would be great. I love it when that happens. And then we go through various other pieces that I'm not interested in reading, and then we get to the end. Then we get to letters and the personals column. And that was part of the mail that I got today, was a periodical. But I also got books in the mail. Amazingly. Because I'm doing this feature called Reading Vermont. Not Reading, Vermont. Reading Vermont. In which I go through, book by book, the massive pile of secondhand books that I got the last time I was up at the old farmhouse in Vermont, visiting Mark Richardson, of Richardson Reads, and his family. We did an extravagant amount of used book buying, even though both of us can barely turn around in our respective homes without hitting miles and miles of books. And I collected all of those books and put them on the floor, neatly out of the way, on the floor in the other room, thinking I will shift them all onto their shelves when I have another pile of secondhand books from Vermont to replace them. But then the world intervened, and as a result, I've just been going through those books, and I'll talk about each one of them with you, and then I will reshelve them. Because you don't want books on the floor. I got a lot of pushback about that. So I said that books on the floor is a sign of defeat as a book reader. Books on the floor, if you are an inveterate book reader, a book lover, like we all are, and you have books stacked on the floor, you have crossed the line into being a book hoarder. And that is bad. Now, I know you can't get rid of them now, but I bet those piles were there before when you could have. And I got a lot of pushback from that. People saying, no, I know exactly where everything is. Well, so did the Collier brothers. They also knew exactly where everything was. But anyway, just Google them if you don't know who they are. What am I, the Encyclopedia Britannica? As I was saying, when I did this Reading Vermont feature, and the last one that I need to do more of them because I want to go through that pile and get it up off the floor. And also, you seem to like it. I did a discussion of John Jakes' historical novel, The Bastard, the first in the Kent Family Chronicles, and I talked a little bit about John Jakes and a little bit about The Bastard, and I mentioned in that video, just offhand, that rereading The Bastard for Reading Vermont reminded me of how entertaining it is. It's really bad. Don't get me wrong. Don't read this wrong. It's really, really bad. But it's still mighty entertaining, and I think you would all agree, that we are living through historical times that are totally excusing the reading of stuff that's really, really bad but very entertaining. I don't think that ever needed much in the way of excuse, but it certainly doesn't need excusing now. So, even I am not so Jesuitical as to say, no, now's not the time for frivolous entertainment. If ever there was a time for frivolous entertainment, it's now. But in the course of that video, I mentioned that if I were at a used bookstore up in Vermont with Mark Richardson, you should shop for books with him. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. I know he comes across as this old-style 1950s Western TV show sheriff, but going to a big, well-stocked used bookstore with him you see another side of Mark. But I mentioned that if I were ever up there, going to these thrift shops in Vermont, where the stuff is dirt cheap, and saw the whole run of the John Jakes Kent Family Chronicles, I would probably get that whole run just to reread it, just for the fun of rereading it. I might have even mentioned in that video that I have a real sweet tooth for old mass market box sets. The Kent Family Chronicles, the Vampire Chronicles, the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever, Tolkien, Asimov, all kinds of stuff used to come in box sets, in little box sets. I worked in a bookstore when they were at their heyday, and they were unbelievably popular at Christmas time. Unbelievably so. Because you can wrap a box, and the boxes had decorations on them, and it was a nice gift to give. We used to make a whole table just pyramided with box sets. And it would be just pillaged in the week before Christmas. And with my help, I would tell customers come in and say, I need something, and I don't have much time, and I have a lot of other stuff to get that isn't books. You've helped me before. Can you recommend me something that I can give to a reader that they might not have and that they might want and that won't take any time at all to get? And I would say, yeah, I recommend a box set. Let's go to this table. Tell me a little bit about what they like to read. I'll pick out a box set that they either haven't read or that they haven't read as a box set. Even if someone has read the foundation books, they might still want the box set. That has largely gone away. Publishers, they don't offer any kind of price break on their box sets, and the box sets are usually not in boxes anymore. It's just cardboard wrapped around the books. It's ridiculous. It doesn't hold up at all. Publishers have, I think, moved more towards commemorative leather hardcovers of these reprints as a thing to give someone. That's also a neat present. It's also easily wrapped, that sort of thing. But I mentioned that. I mentioned that in my Reading Vermont video, and I thought nothing more of it. And one of you, you know who you are, I can't thank you enough, one of you actually sent me not one, but 2 Kent Family Chronicle box sets. That is the whole of the Kent Family Chronicles. In the mail, in the middle of a pandemic. That is just incredibly nice. I have both of these in mass market box sets, so I guess I have no choice, no excuse, but to read them. And this is, I mentioned when I showed you that mass market in Reading Vermont, that the one change that was made for the mass market paperback, that where John Jakes, when this was reissued as mass market paperback after the thing became a miniseries on TV, oh boy, did he hit the jackpot. It sold like the dickens. It was a perfect reminder, as I told people at the time, and I'll mention it again to you, that reading is an extremely niche pursuit. Extremely so. We don't like to think of it that way. It's our whole world. And if you only watch BookTube, and you don't watch anything else, you don't watch any TV or any news, which I highly encourage, then you'll think even more that it's the whole world. And it's not. It's not. Most people never touch a book to read it for pleasure. Never. And there's a huge number of people in the world, I would say 60 to 70% of the people who are in the world, who would rather die than read a book. Literally, if you had a loaded rifle pointed at their face and said, pick up that copy of Dan Brown, or I'll blow your head off, they would say, I don't want to read. I remember reading from high school, and it was the worst experience in the world, so go ahead and kill me. And those Kent Family Chronicle mass market paperbacks, back when they were reissued because of the TV show, suddenly reinforced, they underscored my contention, because then all of a sudden you had a 10-fold, 50-fold, 100-fold increase in the number of people who wanted to read The Bastard because they'd seen it on TV. That's the ratio that we're talking about here. Those people would never dream of reading a book on their own. But you show it to them on TV and they like it, they might pick up the book. So the publisher redid the book with Andrew Stevens on the cover. There was a sketched out version of Andrew Stevens on the cover instead of the original face that we saw, which was older and far more indistinct. There we have, there's Stella Stevens' boy, huh? He was quite the kumquat in his day, and he was in the TV version, the miniseries of The Bastard, and I think he might have been briefly in the second one as well. But he was a really solid old school melodramatic actor of a type that we don't really make them anymore. He learned the craft of acting at his mother's knee, and as a result, it was a great deal of ham. It was a great deal of primary emotions, and it was helped in his case by the fact that he was absolutely drop dead gorgeous. I don't know if he's even still alive, but when he did this miniseries, he was reason enough to watch it. But it was also mighty entertaining. The Bastard as a miniseries is mighty entertaining, and the publisher put his face on here. And this thing started selling like griddle cakes. It was unbelievable. It sold really well to begin with. That just took off. And I got lots and lots of comments about that video, and quite a few comments. Some of you left it in the comments field. Also, I leave my email in every video, so you can email me about anything in the world. And I got a lot of emails and a lot of comments that prove to me that I have the best viewers in the world, because a number of those comments pointed out that he has the wrong kind of sword on the cover. That sword doesn't work at all for the time period. I love you people so much. and now I not only have the look at that, look at the back here. They even redid the faces of the historical figures. There you have William Shatner as Paul Revere. You have Tom Bosley as Ben Franklin. You can almost tell who they are. Wow. Well, anyway, now I have the whole of the Kent Family Chronicles. So there's the first four, taking you through the Civil War, and then the next four, which I don't know. I mean, look at this. Volume 6 is The Warriors. It's in absolutely perfect condition. Volume 8 is The Americans. These things are untouched. This second series, I don't know how many people followed the Kent Family Chronicles all the way to the end. I read them all once upon a time because I was a big fan of John Jakes, just as a pure hack writer. I don't think many people did, and now I get to do it all over again thanks to one of you. Wasn't that nice? So I did get books in the mail. I got the last thing I was expecting. I got the mass market box set of the Kent Family Chronicles. Go figure. So there you go. That was my mail for today. Don't get used to this. I don't expect fireworks like this every day. Usually these days there's nothing at all. But anyway, I'll wrap this up. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.